What does occur when Grace encounters disrespect? Live on TV. It was to be another promo stop, another morning television appearance, another civil conversation on The View. But what happened between Jennifer Lopez and Joy Behar was something altogether more uncooked, more cringe-making, and for many viewers, indelible. We've all had moments when someone's crossed the line, when the conversation turns, the room chill begins, and suddenly you're not negotiating anymore. You're being pinned. Perhaps it's happened with coworkers, perhaps with relatives, or perhaps, like Jennifer, you've sat silently in a room and wondered, why are they attacking me this way? At first, it seemed like business as usual. Jennifer Lopez, stunning and confident, stepped out onto the stage prepared to discuss her work, her art, perhaps even her life. But from the opening question, it was apparent that this wasn't going to be a chatty sit-down. Something was wrong. The warmth had been discarded. The customary courtesy had been swapped with coldness, and in short order, that coldness gave way to something vindictive. You could feel it in the air, the way Joy's questions sharpened, the way the tone turned personal, and the way Jennifer, despite years of experience in front of cameras, had to dig deep just to stay composed. Now, if you've ever been misunderstood, underestimated, or unfairly judged, this story may hit a nerve. Because what started as a simple talk show interview turned into something much more symbolic, a battle over dignity, respect, and how much one person should be expected to take before they simply say enough. It wasn't so much the questions Joy asked, it was how she asked them, the undertone of judgment, the assumptions, the almost gleeful attempt to dismantle someone who, for all her success, approached with vulnerability, hoping for some considered exchange. And what's most remarkable, the manner in which Jennifer reacted, not with anger, not with attack, but with something much more powerful, poise, clarity, and ultimately the integrity to walk away. And let's be real, how many of us have lingered in a conversation too long, wanting it to improve, wanting to maintain the peace, swallowing our ego, only to leave it later and wish we'd spoken out sooner? That's what makes this moment stand out, because Jennifer did speak out, not just on her own behalf, but on behalf of anyone who's ever felt belittled or cornered. This was not a PR breakdown. It was not a histrionic celebrity meltdown. It was something else entirely, a soft, stern, but unmistakable stance, a line in the sand. So what actually did go down that morning on The View? Why did a popular talk show host push so hard? And what can we learn about how Jennifer Lopez navigated it all, gracefully, assertively, and without giving in? Stick with me, because we're going to take you through this explosive encounter minute by minute. And before it's all over, you may never look at celebrity interviews, and perhaps even yourself, quite the same way again. What does a star of Hollywood's stature do when she sits down for what promises to be a smooth, uncomplicated interview? Then suddenly finds herself confronted with a host who is more interested in causing controversy than in enjoying a nice conversation? Well, buckle up, because Jennifer Lopez just had one of the most awkward, tense moments of her career. And it all unfolded on national television during her appearance on The View. From the very first question, it was clear something wasn't quite right. What started as a typical promotional stop quickly spiraled into a jaw-dropping exchange that left the entire studio in stunned silence. Now, if you want to know how an ordinary interview landed itself on the front page as a headline disaster, and what J.Lo had to say in response to some fairly tough criticism, keep watching. And don't forget to subscribe and share your thoughts. This is one you won't want to miss. Jennifer Lopez stepped onto the set that morning, anticipating a typical interview. She had a new movie to promote, a couple of tour dates to announce, and thought that business would be as usual. The audience was buzzing, there were fans taking photos with their phones, and all seemed utterly normal, except she sat down beside Joy Behar, who was filling in as the primary interviewer for the day. But Joy was thinking about a different type of interview. Rather than the cozy, cheerful greeting most visitors are used to, Joy's demeanor was frigid, no friendly hello, no chit-chat. She hardly met Jennifer's eye as she scanned through her papers. And when cameras started rolling, her first words spoke volumes for what was to become an unexpectedly argumentative exchange. "So, Jennifer," Joy started, her tone full of something that sounded closer to annoyance than curiosity. "Let's discuss your latest effort. Another romantic comedy where you're essentially playing the same character you've been playing for, what, 20 years now? Don't you think you should, I don't know, experiment a little? Or are you simply going to coast on this formula until people tire of it?" You could have heard a pin drop in the studio. Even the camera crew appeared to be momentarily stunned. Had Joy just uttered that? Jennifer's signature smile faltered for an instant, but to her credit, she maintained her poise. She replied graciously, though her voice had only a trace of surprise. "Well, Joy," she said calmly, "I think that people relate to love and relationship stories because they're universal. I've had the good fortune to be around some great writers and directors who are bringing new things to these stories, and I always aim to bring something fresh to each character I play." It was a thoughtful, considerate response, but Joy wasn't done. She sat back and released a crisp, slightly too long laugh. "Fresh ideas? Come on," she asked, her eyebrows snapping up. "Because from where I sit, it seems like you're just milking the same romantic lead part over and over again. I mean, how many times can you be the career-driven woman who finds love in the most unlikely place? Isn't that like half of your films?" The rest of the co-hosts were visibly uncomfortable. Sunny Huston appeared as though she might interrupt and take the conversation in another direction, but Joy was not done yet. Jennifer shifted slightly in her chair. The smile was still there, but more tense now, more strained. "I think that's a pretty limited way to define my work, Joy," she replied steadily but firmly. "Every project is different, and I approach each one as a chance to learn and push myself. And also, I've been making a lot of these films, which means I get to develop the stories we tell from the ground up." "Ah," Joy replied, arching an eyebrow. "Creative control," using air quotes for emphasis. "That's what we're saying now? Because to me it appears that you have a money-making formula that works and you're sticking with it, whether or not it's actually doing anything worthwhile for the movies. Be honest, when was the last time you actually took a real risk as an actor?" The tension within the studio was at boiling point. You could sense it in the air, tense and oppressive. Jennifer's jaw clenched ever so minutely. Then for the first time since sitting, she locked gazes with Joy Behar, and her face was as sharp as a knife to cut anyone off in mid-sentence. "I'm not sure what you're trying to accomplish here, Joy," she said, her voice even but edged with steel. "I came on this show to have a conversation, not to be put on trial for the choices I've made in my career." You could sense the restraint in her voice, but also the energy. "I've been in this business more than 20 years, Jennifer went on, and I've made a living doing what I do best, talking to people all over the world through my work." But rather than backing off, Joy sounded more riled than ever. If anything, Jennifer's measured retort just made her angrier. "Attacked? I'm just asking the questions a lot of people are already thinking," Joy replied, leaning forward now, her tone sharp. "You've built this brand, this empire on being America's sweetheart, but behind the designer clothes and the polished interviews, what's really there? What happens when the cameras stop rolling and the makeup comes off?" Jennifer blinked, obviously surprised. "What kind of question is that?" she asked, her voice infused with real incredulity. "Are you suggesting that I'm somehow inauthentic because I have a public persona? That's all part of the job. That's how the business is." Joy wasn't letting go. "Public image?" she repeated with a mocking tone. "Is that what we're calling multiple marriages and every relationship splashed across the tabloids? Is that what we're calling the constant need to stay in the spotlight, no matter the cost? Because from where I'm sitting, it doesn't look like professionalism. It looks like desperation." There was a gasp of shock from the audience. You could even observe the camera operators look at each other in shock. The mood had shifted from strained to personal, just plain personal, and it was disconcerting. Jennifer's expression changed from confusion to something more profound. Hurt, then steadiness, then a low-burning, quiet anger. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. "I can't believe you just said that." She spoke in quiet tones, her voice heavy with seriousness. "My personal life, my relationships are just that. Personal, the fact that the media does cover them doesn't give you or anyone else the right to politicize them in what's supposed to be a professional environment. Joy leaned forward once more, visibly unperturbed. But they're not personal, are they? When you're having the paparazzi photograph your date nights, when you're releasing press releases after every breakup, you can't call it private when you've made it a part of your public persona. You can't invite the press in when it benefits you and expect to play shocked when someone else poses you difficult questions. At this point, Jennifer had reached her limit. She rose, abruptly, assertively. Her chair scraped against the floor of the studio with a shriek that seemed to wake everyone up from their trance. Audience members leapt. Members of the crew stared in shock. Tough questions? Jennifer's voice was louder now, stern and angry. You call this tough questioning? This is personal. This is an ambush. I've done more interviews than I can count in my career, Joy, and I've never, not once, been treated with this kind of disrespect. But Joy was not intimidated. She made another one of those dry, dismissive laughs that were fast becoming her trademark during this tense interchange. Unprofessional? She repeated. You think it's unprofessional to ask hard questions? I think that what's unprofessional is appearing on a talk show, anticipating nothing but softballs and insincere compliments. This is The View, not your own personal PR show. The rest of the co-hosts were now visibly on edge. You could tell from their expressions, concern, even embarrassment. One of them attempted to interrupt, perhaps in an effort to redirect the discussion to safer territory, but Joy brushed them away with an upraised hand. She was on a roll, and it was obvious she had no plans to abate. You know what I think, Joy declared, her voice increasing in volume, her tone becoming more cutting. I figure you're just used to being treated like royalty, Joy said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. Like you're somehow above reproach. But here's a newsflash, Jennifer. This isn't celebrity adoration. This is a talk show. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend your new film is some sort of cinematic masterpiece, when we both know it's nothing but another vanity project intended to keep your mug on the big screen. The words hit like punches. Jennifer's hands were shaking now, obviously not with nerves, but with raw frustration. You could tell by the way she was holding herself, controlled, calm, but stewing. This was not fear. This was years of composure, training, and professionalism, just about keeping at bay a well-deserved rage. You obviously have some sort of personal grudge against me, Joy, Jennifer answered, her tone strained but firm. And I'm not going to sit here and be your punching bag because you're having a bad day, or because you think embarrassing me will get you a viral video. Joy reclined, her face creased with feigned concern. Personal issue? She asked, each word heavy with disdain. Trust me, darling, I don't have personal issues with strangers. What I do have are professional standards, and I'm not going to compromise them by pretending your movie is something it isn't. And then came the line that made the whole room take a collective breath. If you can't stand having real questions asked of you about your career and your decisions, Joy went on, perhaps you shouldn't conduct interviews in the first place. That term, sweetheart, lingered in the air like a slap, a delicate but unmistakable insult. You could almost hear the emotional temperature drop. Jennifer's eyes narrowed, and in a moment, it felt like time stood still. Everyone in the studio sensed it. They were in for something to remember. Jennifer drew a deep, slow breath, and when she spoke again, a moment later, her voice was transformed entirely. The careful diplomacy was gone. This was Jennifer Lopez, the woman, not the celebrity, not the polished performer, telling it like it was, unvarnished. Professional standards, Joy, she snapped, her tone icy and sharp. You want to discuss professional standards? Let's discuss them. A professional interviewer asks pertinent questions as to why the guest is on the show. A professional doesn't use their seat at the table to spit personal insults at someone they've never even met. And a professional, a genuine one, doesn't patronize their guests like they're a child in school who has to be taught a lesson. For an instant, Joy's confident veneer cracked. You could glimpse it, just for an instant, but she covered it up instantly with that same smirking half-smile. Oh, so now you're going to teach me how to do my job? She snapped. That's rich. Coming from someone whose greatest acting hurdle in the past decade has been deciding which designer gown to wear to her own movie premiere, Jennifer's voice came up, no longer held back, no longer attempting to make it elegant. "Are you kidding me at the moment?" she exclaimed, eyes aflame. "You're sitting here chatting about standards when you're actually bullying me on national TV. Do you actually believe that makes you some sort of truth teller? It doesn't. It makes you cruel. That's all." The crowd had become absolutely silent. Only a handful of awkward murmurs disturbed the air. What had begun as a celebrity profile had become an exchange that was increasingly personal, rather than professional, and it was agonizing to see. Everyone present knew it. This had gotten far out of hand beyond what anyone had anticipated, and yet Joy appeared to be thriving in the tempest she'd unleashed, as though she wasn't merely untouched, but galvanized by it. "Oh, so that's the new name? Honest questions?" Joy retorted, voice rising. "You know what is truly cruel, Jennifer? Creating films that insult the intelligence of the viewer just in order to maintain your lifestyle. That's cruel. Stealing roles from actresses who might actually have something unique to offer on screen? That's cruel. Being all relatable and living in a bubble that most people couldn't even begin to dream about? That's not only cruel, it's insulting." At that point, Jennifer's poise, which had endured everything to date, finally broke. "You don't know a thing about my life," she said, her voice trembling with feeling. "You have no idea what I had to endure to reach where I am. You don't know the rejection, the thousands of times I was informed that I wasn't good enough, that I didn't look the part, that I didn't fit Hollywood's very narrow definition of what a leading lady is." She was not keeping anything back now. "You don't get to see the work that I do behind the scenes," she went on. "The people I hire, the causes I advocate for, the doors I've helped open for other Latina actresses attempting to succeed in an industry that is still not sure what to do with us." But before she could speak another word, Joy interrupted her with a theatrical sweep of her hand. Oh, boy," Joy sneered. "The victim thing. Poor Jennifer Lopez, fighting against the world, while residing in mansions and traveling in private planes? Are we actually expected to feel bad for you because Hollywood is tough?" She laughed once more, icy, condescending. "Everybody in this industry experiences rejection. The difference is, most folks don't make their struggles into PR campaigns. They don't pretty up every obstacle with a bow and call it empowerment." Jennifer was once more standing, her fists tightly gripped at her sides. Her voice lifted, not in anger, but in unadulterated, unbridled frustration. "You are unbelievable, Joy, totally unbelievable. I came here to discuss my work, to engage with fans, to have a reflective, intelligent conversation, and you've reduced this to some sort of therapy session where you get to play amateur psychologist and tear me apart on live television." Joy smirked once more, and then released that all-too-familiar scoff of a laugh. "For my amusement?" she asked. "Believe me, Jennifer, this is not amusing. It's sad. It's sad to watch a person who has every advantage in the world become a victim rather than simply take responsibility for her actions." She leaned in closer now, voice harder than ever. "What's depressing," Joy said, "is watching celebrities act like the world owes them something, just for existing, like we're all supposed to be grateful that they're gracing us with their presence." At this point, the other co-hosts were desperately trying to interject, hands raised, voices low and urgent. But it didn't matter. Neither Jennifer nor Joy was paying them any attention. The two women were locked into something more profound now, something raw, intimate, and excruciatingly public. "Entitled?" Jennifer echoed, her voice breaking with rage. "You want to discuss entitled?" She advanced, eyes ablaze. "What's entitled is thinking that you can ambush somebody on your show. What's entitled is taking your platform and tearing people down because you think it makes you sound smart or cool. What's entitled is sitting behind that desk acting like you're the moral authority when all you're really doing is being a bully with a microphone." And for the first time since all of this disagreement started, something shifted in Joy's face. The smugness melted away. Her face set, her cheeks reddening in actual anger. This was no longer theater bravado. This was two strong women standing face to face, and neither one of them about to back down. "Preposterous," Joy laughed, her eyebrows flying up. A bully? I'm a bully because I questioned you in tough ways? I'm a bully because I refuse to jump through hoops and praise you like all the rest? Perhaps there is something wrong with you, Jennifer, not me. Perhaps you've been swimming so long in a sea of yes people, you've lost your sense of how to handle being challenged. Jennifer's reply was quick, but this time, her voice cracked just a little. The rage remained, but behind it, for the first time, there was something else. Something genuine. Something hurt. This isn't challenging me, Joy, she said, her voice low but steady. What you're doing right now, this isn't thoughtful journalism. This is personal. This is an attack. And there's a big difference between asking tough questions and going out of your way to be cruel. What you're doing, it's beneath what The View is supposed to stand for. Joy did not blink. Her tone actually became even more acidic. Her on-camera composure was long gone now, overwhelmed by raw anger. Don't you dare give me the rundown on what this program is about, she snapped. I've been doing this longer than you've been a household name. I've sat with presidents, Nobel laureates, individuals who've actually altered the course of history. And now I get to come on here and act like your newest schmaltzy romantic comedy is breaking news? Do you realize how demeaning that is? Jennifer glared at her, obviously shocked. So that's what this is about, she said softly. You believe I'm beneath you? That my work isn't valid because it doesn't fit in with your concept of what's valid? That because I produce movies that make people happy and don't take film festival awards, I don't even rate the most minimal level of respect? Joy folded her arms, her voice now heavy with condescension. I believe, she said slowly, there's a difference between art and entertainment. There's a difference between being famous and being significant. And I think many people in your situation lose sight of which camp they really belong to. The studio was so still, you could listen to the gentle hum of the lights. Even the crew members had ceased to move. The whole set seemed to be set in time, as though everyone was watching something that would be the subject of discussion for years to come. When Jennifer finally replied, her voice was barely above a whisper, but the authority behind her words was unmistakable. You're right about one thing, Joy, she said. There is a difference between being famous and being important, but there's also a difference between being a journalist and being a bitter person who tears others down just to feel better about themselves. She paused for a moment, and when she continued, her eyes locked on Joy's with unshakable focus. And right now, I know exactly which category you belong to. Joy's face paled. For the first time since the interview had begun, she looked caught off guard, like the weight of her words had finally caught up to her. I think you're being a little dramatic, Jennifer, she said, her voice noticeably softer now. This is just a conversation. Jennifer let out a bitter laugh, short, sharp, and echoing with disbelief. A conversation, she echoed. You've spent the past 15 minutes belittling my career, my personal life, my value as a human being, and you call it a conversation? She moved closer, filling the room with her presence. You think ambushing someone on television, tearing them apart, and attempting to destroy their self-confidence is a chat? You think that's reasonable? That's journalism? I'm not trying to destroy anything, Joy said quickly, but for once her voice lacked conviction. The confidence she had clung to throughout the interview was beginning to fade. I'm just trying to have an honest discussion about celebrity culture and the entertainment industry, she added almost defensively. Jennifer didn't buy it for a second. No, you're not, she told him sharply. You're attempting to embarrass me. You think humiliating someone on television makes for good television. You believe that people will watch someone disintegrate in front of a live crowd. But I'm not going to give you that moment, Joy. I won't let you take that pleasure. Then for the very first time, Jennifer turned away from Joy and spoke to the other hosts, who had been silent in shell shock throughout the whole ordeal. Jennifer stepped towards the co-hosts, her face softening ever so slightly. Her tone, while still firm, was tinged with sincerity. I want to apologize to you ladies, she told them, gazing at each one in turn. This is not what I signed up for, and I'm sure it's not what you anticipated either. But I won't sit here just and be a punching bag, not for the sake of being polite, not for anyone. She turned back to Joy, who now looked noticeably uncomfortable. The air of control she'd held throughout the interview had finally slipped through her fingers. "And as for you, Joy," Jennifer continued, "I hope whatever satisfaction you're getting from this moment was worth it. Because this isn't journalism. This isn't professionalism. This is just mean-spirited." The cameras rolled on, catching every second, every ripple of feeling on both women's faces. Nothing was off the record anymore. Jennifer looked directly at the main camera, the home audience, and her voice changed into something cool, composed, and articulate. "To everyone watching," she said, "please understand that what happened here today, is not what The View usually is. The other women on this show are professionals. They ask tough questions, yes, but they do it with respect. What happened today isn't normal, and it isn't okay." Joy, clearly scrambling to regain her footing, interjected, her voice shaky, but still trying to sound firm. "Jennifer, I believe you're overreacting. This is TV. This is how it goes. Occasionally people get hot-headed. That's part of the process. It's just a discussion." But Jennifer whirled back to Joy with a stare that could silence a room. And it did. What occupied the air between them wasn't anger anymore. It was something more profound. It was disappointment, cutting, inescapable, and the kind of emotional clarity that only reveals itself when a person gets past the din and identifies the truth for what it really is. "No, Joy," Jennifer said quietly. "This is not what they do on talk shows. On talk shows, hosts don't ask intelligent questions. They listen. They treat guests with basic human decency." Her voice was still firm, but behind every word a righteous strength was gathering. "What you did today was not impulsive. It was calculated. You came in here prepared to dismantle me, and you used your position at that desk to attempt to belittle me." Joy's mouth was open to answer, but Jennifer raised her hand. "I'm not done." There was a total silence, electric and respectful. "You want to know what's actually sad about all of this?" Jennifer went on. "You could have had a deep, impactful conversation with me. You could have asked me about being a Latina woman in a field that never makes room for us. You could have inquired about what it's like to create a business empire while still struggling to be taken seriously as an artist. You might have inquired about my philanthropic work or what I have learned from being a mother." Her voice broke a little, but she persisted. "Instead, you tried to embarrass me." And this time, Jennifer was not alone in nodding. On the other side of the table, the other co-hosts were nodding visibly, in particular, Sunny Hostin, who appeared to be dying to leap in and apologize for the whole panel. The others sat in uncomfortable silence, their faces reddening with shame at the display next to them. "But here's the part you didn't see coming, Joy," Jennifer continued, her voice mounting with quiet determination. "You didn't see that I've been working with folks like you all these years. You're not the first one who's attempted to shrink me down, and you won't be the last one either. The difference is, I'm not that wide-eyed new girl anymore. I'm not going to smile past disrespect just to keep things harmonious." By this point, Joy appeared visibly agitated. The smug veneer was gone, replaced by a flushing face and rapid eyes. Her bid to control the conversation had faltered spectacularly. "Jennifer," Joy spoke hastily, "perhaps we should take a time out. Restart the conversation." Jennifer blinked, nearly dazed. "Restart?" she repeated. "You think we can just pause, restart, after everything that you just said? After questioning my career, my integrity, and my value as a human being?" She nodded her head, her voice low and biting. "You don't get to dismantle someone for 15 consecutive minutes and then expect them to smile for the next part." "Begin again," Jennifer whispered back, shaking her head. "This is not how this works, Joy. Any of this works." She reached down and methodically started to pack up her stuff, her microphone, water bottle, note cards in front of her, and that's when it hit everybody. She wasn't merely speaking, she was departing. The cameramen behind the cameras suddenly leapt into motion, whispering into headsets, frantically attempting to devise a way to recover the segment. The rest of the co-hosts also regarded each other with increasing alarm, eyes zigzagging from Jennifer to Joy and vice versa. And Joy, for the first time since this all started, She looked like she actually comprehended the magnitude of what she'd done, and that it had got completely away from her. Jennifer stood up from the chair and gazed down at Joy. No longer in anger, but in something far worse, disappointment laced with pity. "What is the true tragedy in all of this?" Jennifer said, her tone even but icily pointed. "It's that you had your platform, such a powerful platform, and you chose to use it to destroy another woman." She paused to let those words penetrate before she went on. "You had the chance to lift someone up, to use your voice, your influence, to inspire, to show young women watching at home that success doesn't have to come at the expense of someone else's dignity, that we can support each other, even in a tough industry. But instead, you chose cruelty. You chose to be the example of everything we're trying to change." Joy's face was red to the chin now, her eyes cast down. She seemed to wish she could disappear into her chair. "Jennifer, uh, I may have come on too strong," Joy gulped, "but I was just trying to ask people questions they'd want to know the answer to." Jennifer shook her head, her voice tight. "No, you weren't," she said matter-of-factly. "You weren't asking honest questions. You were trying to make a moment happen. You were seeking shock value. You wanted to be the one who brought down Jennifer Lopez on national TV." She hesitated, then added with soft finality, "Well, congratulations, Joy. You got your moment. I hope it was worth it." Jennifer shifted her attention to the remainder of the studio. The camera people, the crew off to the side, the co-hosts still sequestered silently at the table, and the shocked faces in the studio audience. Her voice grew softer, becoming intimate. "To all the rest of you here, I apologize," she said genuinely. "I apologize that you had to see this. This is not who I am, and this is not how I think debates should be settled. But sometimes you must stand up for yourself. Even when it is painful, even when it is in public, and even when it gets ugly." She began to walk off stage, heels tapping lightly on the stage floor. But before she had reached the edge of the set, she turned back once more. Her gaze locked with Joy's, and this time her voice was full of sympathy, not resentment. "And Joy," she said softly, "I want you to know, I really do feel sorry for you." Joy blinked, taken aback. "I feel sorry for anyone who thinks that tearing other people down is the only way to feel powerful," Jennifer continued. "I feel sorry for anyone who has so little joy in their own life that they have to try to steal it from others." She took a breath and finished with grace. "And I'm sorry for anybody who doesn't see that there's room in this world for us all to succeed, without killing each other in the process." There was a moment's silence in the room. Joy attempted one final time, her voice almost inaudible. "Jennifer, wait. Perhaps we simply started off on the wrong foot. Perhaps we can, I don't know, begin anew, have a genuine conversation about your career, about your projects." Jennifer hesitated at the very edge of the set, hand on the curtain. She turned and glanced back at Joy for the last time. Her face was a combination of sorrow and determination, a woman who had ridden through storms and emerged stronger. And in that moment of stillness, her silence expressed more than words ever could. She turned and proceeded off set. "You see what, Joy?" Jennifer said flatly, her voice firm and loud. "I arrived prepared to have that conversation. I was looking forward, naturally looking forward, to discussing my work, my experiences, and my enthusiasm for this profession I've established. But you let me know, from the very beginning question, that you weren't interested in any of that." She gazed Joy straight in the eyes. "You wanted something else altogether, and now it's too late." The studio was as silent as a grave. Even the constant hum of the cameras seemed to have stopped, as if the room itself were holding its breath. "I've learned something during my time in this business," Jennifer went on, her voice taking on quiet strength. "You can't always dictate how people will treat you, but you can dictate how you're going to react. And my reaction to what occurred here today is easy. I'm walking away." She spoke so calmly and so convincingly that it was more powerful than any rant ever could be. "I'm walking away from the negativity. I'm walking away from this toxicity. And I'm walking away from anyone, on this set or elsewhere, who thinks that success means tearing other people down just to feel powerful. Then she turned her gaze to the main camera one last time, speaking now not just to Joy or to the hosts, but to the viewers at home. And to whoever's watching this, who's ever been bullied, belittled, or told they weren't good enough, I want you to hear me loud and clear. You have the power to walk away too. She paused for a moment to let the moment breathe, her voice dripping with empathy and empowerment. You hold the power to walk away from people who don't get your value. You hold the power to surround yourself with people who empower you. And most importantly, you hold the power to determine your own worth. Never let someone else do that for you. And then without a single word, she turned and walked away from the set. The only noise was the intentional click of her heels on the floor of the studio, a constant beat sounding less like retreat and more like countdown. A countdown to the finish of Joy's credibility and to the start of a long discussion regarding what the viewers had just seen. The cameras trailed Jennifer off screen, leaving behind a filled set of shocked faces and a palpable aura of contemplation. Joy sat unmoving in her seat, her eyes fixed blankly on the space where Jennifer had been. Surrounding her, the other hosts regarded her with a blend of disappointment, discomfort, and, in some instances, outright revulsion. The live studio audience did not make a sound. Everyone was grappling with what had occurred. And then at last it was Sunny Hostin who spoke, softly attempting to impose some semblance of closure. Well, that was definitely unexpected, she stated. Perhaps we can go to commercial. But Joy remained still. She simply sat there, white-faced, unfocused eyes, finally appreciating the magnitude of what she had accomplished. In her effort to destroy Jennifer Lopez on live television, she had destroyed herself. Her viral moment, one she'd been waiting for? It was arriving, but not as she had hoped, and not on the terms of applause she had anticipated. When the cameras at last fell silent, the studio sat in nervous stillness. There were no stage murmurs, no laughter, no wrapping up conversation, only silence. Everybody there recognized they had just seen something that would reverberate past that morning's program. Something that would redefine the way people watch The View, the way people perceive Joy Behar, and the way they perceive celebrity interview culture as a whole. Jennifer Lopez had stormed off the set, but she left something behind even more potent than herself. A masterclass in self-respect, a reminder that dignity is not being quiet, and a message that standing up for yourself, no matter how uncomfortable the situation is, isn't weakness, it's strength. So what do you think? Was Jennifer Lopez justified in walking off the set? Should she have stayed and attempted to resolve things with Joy Behar? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this.